Welcome to UGR News. I'm your boy Khalid Cecil, and today I call shenanigans on Hunter Biden's laptop. This is ridiculousness. Before the election, the mainstream media knew that Hunter Biden had a laptop out there. Yet, they said that they wouldn't go after him because it was unsubstantiated. Every single attack they had against President Donald Trump was unsubstantiated. Till this day, they're still talking about Russian collusion. Yet, if you bring up the fact that you have questions about the election because it just doesn't add up, you can't talk about that anymore. Heck, I'm not even sure that this video is gonna go up, but I'm gonna do it because it's something that needs to be talked about. Hunter Biden has problems. He has issues. He is an addict. Some of the correspondence that came out from that laptop, the emails back and forth between him and his father, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but reading the text going back and forth, I was literally heartbroken for this man. And I'm even more heartbroken for him during his presidency, for him to finally get an opportunity to be the president and for him not to be mentally capable to do what he wants to do. This isn't Joe's first rodeo. He ran for president multiple times. We know who Joe Biden is. So for these people to sit up here and try to paint over it and make it seem as though that's not who Joe Biden is, that is who Joe Biden is. Joe Biden's a man who says racist things. He says a lot of racist things. He says if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. I couldn't hear anything more disrespectful. He says that voter ID is racist. That is the most ignorant and disrespectful thing I have ever heard in my life. Every single black person out there should be offended that they would even say such a thing. You have to have an ID to rent a house. You have to have an ID to get public assistance. You have to have an ID to get EBT. You have to have an ID to get alcohol. You have to have an ID to drive. You have to have an ID to buy Sudafed. So for this man to sit up here and say somehow that it's racist to ask for an ID, it makes no sense. But I'm going off in a different direction. What I got on here to talk about today was Hunter Biden's laptop and how awfully it's been managed in the news. Some of the pictures and the images from this thing, I'm gonna tell you, when it first came out and I saw some of the images, they were so lewd and explicit that I didn't even want to Google search for them. You know, my brother showed me some of the stuff on his phone, and after he showed it to me, I was like, I don't want to look that up on my phone. I don't even want there to be a history of me looking through these images. It was that disturbing. A lot of the things he did in that video was disturbing. From the crack smoking to him making a porno with a prostitute with a dog on the bed to him having sex with someone who looks like they could be an actual child. I mean, but this man is a man who's hurting and he's not getting the help he needs because he's being coddled by his father, who is obviously a man who loves his son. And he obviously knows that there's something broken inside of Hunter. But he's had so much loss in his life, I believe, Joe Biden, from his son Beau to his first wife, that I think that he does not feel capable of doling out tough love because of the loss that he's had in his life. I would imagine that would be very difficult for you to tell your last remaining son no after the tragedy that your other son went through. But at the end of the day, it's not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Hunter Biden's fault. It's the mainstream media's fault for not reporting the truth when it's out there, because there's an agenda, and the agenda is to eliminate information from your hands. And this is the beginning of totalitarianism. It's the beginning of it. What happens in these types of state is that people they seem to not understand what totalitarianism is or fascism. And they're when governments and private industry come together to suppress the people. These big companies can afford to take these hits that they're talking about. The people that it's gonna hurt are people like my mother and my friends who work for themselves, employ small numbers of people. That's where the pain is gonna come in. You think it's okay to say $15 an hour. $15 an hour sounds great to everyone. Of course it does. But here's the thing that you don't realize. The price of living in Petersburg, Virginia is completely different than the price of living in Brooklyn, New York. So $15 an hour, you're doing very well living in Virginia. In Brooklyn, you probably have enough to rent a one-room shack. All of these decisions and all of these things could have been avoided. It could have all been avoided if the media just focused on what was really going on. They were telling us about conspiracies about the Trump family and what the Trump family might be doing, what Eric Trump might be doing, what Don Jr. might be doing, when there's actual evidence of what Hunter Biden was doing. And who goes on television and says, it might be my laptop, it might not? What do you mean? What do you mean? That makes absolutely zero sense in the grand scheme of things. But that's my take on it. I just had to say this entire situation with Hunter Biden is atrocious and it needs to stop. But that's all for me. You can catch me on Twitter @Cecil Khalid. But right about now, I think I'm gonna go underground and work on my master plan.